Hi everyone, welcome back to Witches the Moon. I am your Friday hostess Natalie, and this week is Choose Your Own Topic Week. So I'm going to be talking about an issue that I think is important to me. I do want to point out that I have my Dark Phoenix candle from Starry-Eyed Supplies burning here. I wish you could see the top of it. It's I can't dump it because of the wax, but it's sparkly. This is from Starry-Eyed Supplies by Joey Morris, and it is phenomenal. But I have that burning today. So, the topic I wish to discuss today that's important to me is community involvement. And this topic kind of came up to me. I wasn't sure what I was going to cover. I had a couple of different ideas of topics I wanted to cover this week. And this one kind of stuck out in my mind because of a recent interview that I heard on International Pagan Radio. If you're not familiar with that, there is an app that you can get. In fact, I don't know the name of the app. Hold on, and I can tell you. Tune In, I think is what it's called, but let me just double check. Let's see. Yes, it is Tune In Radio, and this is the app, Tune In Radio, and you can get International Pagan Radio. You can also go to internationalpaganradio.com and look it up there. But there was an interview that David Wood did with Alexander Cabot, and one of the topics that came up in this discussion was involvement in the community. And it really struck a chord with me because, you know, being from a Christian background, there's always been the idea of, you know, show me thy faith without thy works, and I'll show you my faith by my works. And I really have always taken that to heart, because I think at the core of that particular statement isn't so much a religious statement per se as it is a let your actions speak for you kind of statement. I've always believed that words are great. Words have power, that's true, but words are also empty if they're not backed by action. So in certain instances, particularly, and community involvement is one of those things. So let me talk a little bit about ways in which you can engage in the community. And a lot of people are like, oh, but you know, a lot of people don't know I'm pagan. And, you know, people can't know that I'm a witch. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk over the years about how do you define yourself? What is a witch? How do you define, you know, what do you tell people you are? How do you explain your religious beliefs to people? And it's that kind of goes in line with this particular topic. So I'm going to offshoot to that for just a moment, and then I'm going to bring it back into how that ties into community involvement. I saw the funniest meme the other day. It was a picture of Jack Nicholson from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it says, how I must appear to people when I'm trying to explain my spiritual beliefs. And that's true, because especially being eclectic in nature, I'm not specifically Wiccan and I'm not specifically Druid, although I do study the Druid path and I'm a member of the order. I just have ideas that I think resonate with me that I pull from Hindu, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, lots of different things that mean something to me that I think are universal in their nature. And so I pull those ideas into my own spiritual practices. And you know, when you are going out in the community and you're presenting yourself as I am pagan, okay, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how do you become involved in the community? And here in Texas, we are in the Bible Belt. There's a lot of Baptists, there's a lot of Southern Baptists, there's a lot of Catholics here. There are a lot of other types of Christians. I was raised Church Christ. So, you know, they're very much against the idea of anybody that's not Christian, really. Although they seem to take a softer line against someone who is Jewish or is Muslim or even Hindu or Buddhism. They kind of look at those as, oh, they're wrong, but they're nice and they're kind of peaceful, especially Buddhists and Hindus. So it seems like when you tell people you're pagan or you're a witch, all of a sudden it's, you know, there's this huge influx of, oh my God, and people shut down. So how do you define your beliefs to people, or what do you tell people when you approach them could have an impact on how people perceive you? And I have been very open about the fact that the way I introduce myself in terms of spiritual beliefs varies a lot on my audience. If it's someone that I think is going to be open, or at least be willing to ask questions and hear before they make a judgment about what I am, I'll tell people I'm a witch. Other people, I tell them I'm a Druid, and that kind of takes them aback because I am. That's part of my path, and so they kind of look at you like, a Druid? Wait a minute. And they start trying to think back to all the National Geographic shows they've watched about what is a Druid, and they think, a lot of people think human sacrifice. But the fact of the matter is, Druids, yes, there was some human sacrifice. I saw a show recently on National Geographic about Druids, and actually the incidence of that was quite rare, mostly volunteers, and a lot of it didn't occur until the very end when they were being invaded by the Romans, and they were desperate to appease the gods and preserve their way of life because they saw it ending. And I think that's a theme that resonates with a lot of people, especially recently. So how do you define your beliefs to people? Well, let me set that aside for a minute. Let you ruminate on that topic, and I'm going to go back to the idea of community involvement. So there was this radio interview with David Wood and Alexander Cabot, and Alexander and there was someone else on the show, but I didn't catch who it was. It might have been Lady Rhea, but I don't think so. Bridwood, maybe? I'm not sure who it was, and I apologize for that because I had someone talking to me at the time that she was introduced, and so I had to focus on what my husband was saying to me, and I didn't catch who it was, so I apologize. But I was tuning into the interview because of Alexander Cabot. And something that they talked about was how important it is to be involved in your community, because that is where you can make an affect change, not just change for the pagan community in general. In other words, changing people's perceptions of paganism and what it is and what it means and why we practice it and why we've chosen to go back to this ancient belief system, but also making change to better your community. And really that's what we are all about. We practice magic because we believe in the power of energies around us. We believe in harnessing those energies to affect change for the better, and we believe in the interconnectedness of the universe. So that means that you are an integral part of your community. Your community is a part of you. Your community, to an extent, defines who you are, and you define your community by how you behave within that community. So by getting out and getting involved, we can change the perceptions and ideals that people have about the pagan community, what it means to be pagan or what it means to be a witch. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out was last year, one of the local pagan groups, they actually live some distance from me, so I'm not as active in the group as I would like to be. They're about 40, 50 miles away from me, most of them, because they're in Paris and I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it's, I have been trying to get a Pagans of Collin and Denton counties, a more local group organized. There is a group on Meetup that meets pretty regularly, but they seem to be very cliquish, and I didn't feel that I fit in well with that group. So I kind of retracted my involvement with that particular group in terms of going to the social events. However, I'm not above contacting these people and saying, hey, look, we're all pagans. Let's band together and let's do something for the community. And so I approached Mr. Cabot and I told him, look, I would love to hear you talk more about this topic because I agree with you. I think it's very important and I think it's a vital topic. But here in the Bible Belt, it's very hard because, as I was going to state a minute ago, this particular group got together a toy drive for Yule last year and no one would donate. Nobody would donate because we were a pagan group. And so we ended up getting a few donations from people that just wanted to donate to any group that was going to be helping out the community, and for those of us that donated a few things. And so we ended up giving those items to Toys for Tots, I think it was, in the end, and just making a bulk donation from our group, what we collected, to Toys for Tots, which is a larger agency which helps a lot of children. And that's great, that's wonderful, but sometimes those toys don't help the local community per se. A lot of that stuff gets pooled and spread out across various communities. So if you want to affect a change in your local community, here's what I would recommend. Some of the things that you can do are possibly just public service kinds of things. Approaching your local government and saying, hey, look, the next time there's a city council meeting, I know you have many things on your agenda, but we would like to come forward and introduce ourselves as a group and answer any questions that the community has about our group and what we do and how we operate. Banding together with other local church groups, getting to some of these people that run some of these smaller local churches and saying, hey, look, I understand that you have preconceived notions of what our belief systems are. We would like the opportunity to sit down with you and your leadership and talk about what we really believe and seeing if we can't come together to do something for the community, because a lot of these church groups know of families, local families in the community that need help directly. Another thing you can do is to approach some of the local service agencies and say, hey, look, we understand that you guys have your own programs going on, but if you know of other families maybe that didn't make your cutoff for applying for some of these programs or things like that, we would like to be able to sponsor a few of these. Would you be willing to partner with us and talk with us about, helping these families through this time, whether it be through donating toys, a jacket drive, a coat drive, something like that. Another group that I thought about approaching was the local battered women's shelter, because I know that they get a lot of donations and services and help from groups, but they're always needing more. So in that case, maybe doing a jacket or a coat drive, like I said, and saying, hey, look, winter's coming up. Hopefully it'll be as mild as it has been in the past couple of years. I kind of hope not, just because I like harsh winters. I really like the cold weather. I kind of come alive during this time of the year, but it's been so hot that I don't know that it's going to be necessary. But we may have a few days of ice and cold, and some of these families, although we might not think it's that cold because we all have heat and air in our homes, some of these families do not. Either the heating in the air doesn't work, or it's not effective, or it's not central, it's per room, so they're having to shut everything off and everybody piles into one room, and it's very cold at night when the temperature drops. So maybe having those jackets would make a difference for those families, donating blankets, that kind of thing. And so getting the community together and taking a direct involvement in your community by getting out there and saying, hey, look, we need to sit down and decide who can we approach. Bringing other pagans together to say, hey, I know you're solitary, I'm a solitary practitioner, so that's what makes it difficult for me. I tend to be a little bit of a loner just because I don't get along with big groups of people. I like people, I want to be involved with other people, but for some reason I always tend to be the friend that gets, stuck at the back, that's walking behind the rest of the big group and everybody's kind of laughing and I'm sort of carrying everybody's shit. I'm the one that holds everybody's crap while everybody goes on the rides and that kind of thing. That's just how it's always been for me. So getting involved is kind of an intimidating process in some ways for someone such as myself who tends to be rather solitary and not so much by choice. It's just overwhelming knowing where to begin and how to get others to cooperate with you. But again, I think if we take our approach and we approach it in a non-confrontational manner and we approach it as a, look, we're all part of the community, we need to unite. I'm relying on my core belief that as a society, as a universe, and as a being, we are interconnected. Human beings are a system, and this goes back to Murray Bowen's theory, Bowen family systems theory. We are a system, and changes affected in one part of the system affect the rest of the system, whether it be positive or negative. So going forward, I think that it's very, very important that we take an active role in our individual communities, getting out and doing some of these neighborhood watch groups. When you have a neighborhood meeting, approach your homeowners association and say, look guys, I head up, or I am a local pagan and I'm banding with other local pagans. We are really no different than any other group. We'd like to band with all of you so that we can come together as one community and do this particular event that's going to benefit this particular agency. And even if you end up benefiting a larger agency, hey, we're going to take all the money we earn or all this and it's all going to the Salvation Army. We're going to be open and transparent about it. We can make an accounting of whatever has been received. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's cool. We'll just put anonymous, but we're going to make a list of everything we've collected. And all of that's going to be donated to whatever agency at the end, or whatever family, or whatever. Because even within your local communities, we live in a middle class neighborhood. We're very solidly middle class. We're not upper middle class, we're not lower middle class. We're scotch in the middle. But I know that there's a lot of families right now that are facing a lot of hard times. A lot of people are out of work. A lot of people's work has been cut back. They've lost their benefits. The new healthcare law has really damaged our business personally, our speech pathology business. We have suffered. We have lost a lot of clientele that are no longer being covered because they're having to cut back who receives services. They're having to put limits on it that were not previously there because so many people are coming into the system now that not everybody's going to be able to get what they need. And so that is something that you can do too. If you have a service that you offer, like I'm a speech pathologist, perhaps finding a family in need of your particular service and offering that service for free for a time, maybe doing 6 months worth of service free of charge for that family just to get them a head start until they can get themselves into a good place. You know, things like that. There are many innumerable ways, and this is really a good way to get creative with how you get involved. So kind of tying in the ideas of how do you approach who you are and what you do with introducing yourself within the community, I think that the nomenclature of pagan is more accepted than witch, but it's looked at kind of the same way Druidry is. They're kind of like, well, what does that mean exactly? You know, now they're probably still going to think you're a fruitcake because you believe in magic, you know, and it's really kind of well looked at these days. But you know what? You got to believe in something, and magic isn't as screwbally as anything else that's out there. I think that we have science to back us. We know that there are energy fields all around us. Obviously, Edison knew it was there. Dudes, you don't believe in magic? Take a look at that. Once upon a time, people thought that was magic and witchcraft too. So today's science is yesterday's magic. Just remember that, folks. So, you know, I think when people look at it that way and it's approached that way, or you just say, hey, look, we're a local group. You may not even have to say who you are. You can just say, look, we're a local group. Now, I think if you don't educate the public on what we really believe in, our involvement and our desire to better our own communities, it's going to allow for a lot of stereotypic behaviors or thoughts to continue. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems that faces our nations today, is that there are a lot of stereotypical ideals that are out there, and people ascribe to these ideals because they are not educated to the contrary. That we really need to get out there and make an effort within our community to really set aside some of these stereotypies and sorry, that's a speech term, ideas of stereotypes, and breaking those ideas and letting people know that this is not necessarily true. Every stereotype has some element of truth to it, I think, or some fact on which it's based, but it's blown out of proportion and ridiculized. And that's not even a word. Made ridiculous, okay? It's perpetuated over time because people spread it and spread it and spread it. And the only way to overcome that is by re-educating the populace. We can re-educate the populace by becoming more involved directly in our society. And I know that this breaks the whole rule of silence that's so big in the field of witchcraft, that, you know, the first rule of Witch Club is you don't talk about Witch Club. Honey pies, I think that that time is over. I think that that era needs to end, because I think that that has allowed a lot of the stereotypes to go by. The burning times are behind us, and although there are those that would bring them back, and I do understand that, and I understand that it's never that far away, it's never going to be that far away if we don't push it away. And we need to push it away by becoming far more involved in our own communities and setting up the understanding of what do we really believe, and helping people to understand that not everyone that's pagan believes exactly the same thing, that we draw our faiths from many different sources, and that we answer to what calls to us. It is an essentially dogma-free belief system, which is what I think draws a lot of people to it. So I think that educating the public, becoming more actively involved in groups, and they may not necessarily have to be pagan groups, by just presenting yourself as a pagan and becoming involved in other charitable groups by doing things to help other agencies, maybe like your Visiting Nurses Association, a hospice association that's doing a Christmas drive, by volunteering that and putting yourself out there as a pagan. Don't hide your jewelry, don't hide your beliefs. If people ask you, answer them honestly, answer them stably. If they want to argue with you, and you're going to have those people that do. You're going to have those people that are going to be confrontational and tell them, look, I appreciate the fact that you have your beliefs and that you want to defend your beliefs, and I would love to have an open and honest discussion and debate with you about that, but this is not the time or place. I am here for this purpose today, and this is what I'm focusing on. Thank you. Have a nice day. And by taking a mature, adult approach to the situation, we can affect the most and best change for everyone involved. But I definitely think that being involved in the community and being involved as a pagan in the community is really vitally important for your own growth spiritually, but also for the spiritual growth of those around you, whether you realize that you're affecting them or not. Because once again, we are a system, and what affects one affects the others, and it trickles down. And so the only way to really begin change is to begin local, begin small, and let that trickle down through society by allowing it to spread of its own accord. So that's my talk today on community involvement and why it's so important. And I think it's really important now, especially as we're going into the holiday season. This is a time when people tend to become more mindful of that. So I hope that this has caused some thought and discussion on your part. I appreciate you all watching. Many blessings to you all as we go forward into this holiday season. May you be blessed. May you have peace. May there be love and hope in your hearts and in your lives. And thank you so much for watching. Blessed be.